When emotions run high and someone reaches out to you unexpectedly, it's natural to feel a surge of conflicting thoughts and feelings. You might experience a whirlwind of excitement, doubt, anger, or even hope. This mixture of emotions can easily lead you to react impulsively, driven by the heat of the moment rather than thoughtful consideration. It's important to pause and resist the urge to respond right away. The power of pausing lies in its ability to create space to breathe, to think, and to ground yourself before taking action. This pause is not just a moment of silence. It's a moment of self-control, a moment where you reclaim your power over the situation. When you take a pause, you are essentially giving yourself the gift of time. Time to let the initial emotional wave subside. Time to step back and observe your own feelings without letting them dictate your response. Often our first reaction is fueled by raw emotion, and while emotions are valid, they don't always lead to the wisest decisions. By pausing, in that clarity, you gain a better understanding of what you're truly feeling and why. Are you reacting out of fear, out of anger, out of longing? The pause creates an opportunity to identify the root of your emotions, which is essential in making a response that aligns with your values and goals. This moment of pause is not just about controlling your response to the other person, it's also about protecting your own emotional well-being. When someone reaches out unexpectedly, it can reopen wounds, trigger old patterns, or spark unresolved feelings. Without a pause, you might find yourself slipping into behaviors or thoughts that you've worked hard to move past. A pause gives you the chance to remind yourself of the progress you've made and the boundaries you've set. It allows you to remember who you are and what you deserve before engaging with the other person. The act of pausing also disrupts the cycle of emotional reactivity. When someone contacts you, their words or actions may carry an emotional charge, whether intentional or not. If you respond immediately, you risk mirroring that energy, perpetuating a cycle of reaction and counter-reaction. This can lead to unnecessary conflict, confusion, or regret. By pausing, you break that cycle. You take control of the narrative and decide how you want to engage, or whether you want to engage at all. The pause puts you in the driver's seat, allowing you to steer the situation in a direction that serves your highest good. During this pause, it's helpful to reflect on your intentions. Ask yourself why you feel the urge to respond immediately. Are you seeking closure, validation, reconnection? Understanding your own motivations can provide valuable insight into what you truly need in the moment. Sometimes the urgency to respond stems from a place of fear of losing the connection, fear of being misunderstood, or fear of missed opportunities. The pause, other times, it stems from a place of hope that things might be different this time, that the conversation might bring resolution or healing. By pausing, you give yourself the time to distinguish between fear, hope, and reality, which can guide you toward a response that feels authentic and empowering. The pause is also an opportunity to consider the broader context of the situation. Reflect on the history of your relationship with this person. What patterns have emerged in the past? How have previous interactions unfolded? Have their actions matched their words? Taking a moment to analyze the situation from a broader perspective can help you approach the interaction with greater awareness. It allows you to see beyond the immediate emotions of the moment and consider the bigger picture of what this interaction might mean for you. Pausing doesn't mean avoiding or ignoring the situation. It means approaching it with mindfulness and intention. It's about creating a buffer between the stimulus and your response, allowing you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. This doesn't just benefit you, it also benefits the other person. A measured response is often more constructive and clear than a hurried one. It sets the tone for the interaction and communicates that you value yourself enough to take the time to think before you act. One of the most powerful aspects of pausing is the way it reinforces your sense of self-worth. When you take a moment to step back and reflect, you're sending a message to yourself that your peace and clarity are priorities. You're reminding yourself that you are not obligated to respond on anyone else's timeline. You have the right to take as much time as you need to feel grounded and sure of yourself. This act of self-respect can be incredibly empowering, especially in situations where you might feel vulnerable or uncertain. The practice of pausing also extends beyond the immediate moment of receiving the message or call. It can involve taking time to engage in activities that help you process your emotions and thoughts. This might mean journaling, meditating, talking to a trusted friend, or simply taking a walk to clear your mind. These activities can help you gain perspective and reconnect with your inner wisdom, allowing you to approach the situation from a place of strength and stability. By investing in this pause, you're investing in your own emotional health and resilience. When someone reaches out to you, it's natural to wonder why they've done so. Understanding the intent behind their contact is one of the most important steps before deciding how to respond. Often a person's intentions are layered, not always obvious, and sometimes even disguised by their words or actions. It's not enough to take their outreach at face value. You must dig deeper to discern the truth, which will protect your emotional well-being and ensure you don't get caught in a cycle of confusion or manipulation. The first step in understanding intent is to look at the context. Consider the timing of their contact. Why now? What has changed in their life or yours that might prompt them to reach out? Sometimes the timing can reveal a lot. People often reach out when they're feeling lonely, regretful, or when something reminds them of the connection they once had with you. Or other times their timing may align with a specific need or desire they have, whether that's closure, validation, or even an attempt to regain control. By analyzing the context, you can start to piece together the reasons behind their outreach. It's also essential to pay attention to how they communicate. The tone and content of their message can provide significant clues about their intentions. Are they apologetic, nostalgic, defensive, or neutral? Are they focused on themselves, or are they genuinely concerned about you? A message that feels vague, overly casual, or overly emotional might indicate a lack of clarity or a hidden agenda. On the other hand, a message that feels thoughtful and balanced may suggest a more genuine intent. However, even seemingly sincere communication should be examined carefully, as words alone don't always reveal the full picture. Beyond their words, their past behavior can provide valuable insight into their intentions. Reflect on the patterns they've exhibited in previous interactions. Have they been consistent in their actions and words? Or have they been unreliable, unpredictable, or inconsistent? Someone who has a history of reaching out only when it's convenient for them might not have your best interests at heart. Similarly, if they have a pattern of resurfacing only to disappear again, their contact may be more about fulfilling their own needs than about building something meaningful with you. Recognizing these patterns can help you avoid falling into old traps or repeating cycles that you've worked hard to break. Another important aspect of understanding intent is to consider their motivations. What might they be looking for from this interaction? Are they seeking closure, trying to rekindle a relationship, or attempting to address unfinished business? Or are they simply trying to alleviate their own guilt or loneliness? It's also possible that their motives are less straightforward. Some people reach out as a way to test the waters, to see if they still have access to you, or to gauge your feelings without fully committing to anything. Understanding their motivations requires a level of emotional intelligence and a willingness to look beyond the surface. While examining their motives, it's equally important to evaluate your own feelings and reactions. How does their contact make you feel? Do you feel hopeful, anxious, irritated, or indifferent? Your emotional response can provide clues about the dynamics between you and the other person. If their outreach stirs up feelings of unease or discomfort, it's worth considering whether their intentions align with your well-being. On the other hand, if their contact feels meaningful and aligns with the progress you've made, it may be worth exploring further. Your emotions are an important guide, but they should be balanced with reason and reflection. To truly understand their intent, you may also need to observe their actions. Intentions are not just communicated through words, but also through behavior. Are they making an effort to show consistency and honesty, or are they simply saying what they think you want to hear? Someone who truly values the connection will demonstrate their intentions through their actions, not just through their words. Actions, after all, speak louder than words and often reveal what words cannot. Another key factor in understanding intent is the nature of your relationship with this person. Consider the history you share and the role they've played in your life. Have they been a source of support and growth, or have they caused more harm than good? Understanding the dynamics of your past interactions can provide important context for their current outreach. If the relationship has been one-sided or toxic, their contact may not be coming from a place of genuine care or respect. On the other hand, if they've shown a willingness to grow and take accountability, their intentions may be more sincere. It's also worth noting that people's intentions can be complex and multifaceted. Sometimes they may not even fully understand their own motives. They might reach out of a mix of emotions: guilt, nostalgia, curiosity, or even a desire for validation. This complexity makes it even more important to approach the situation with patience and discernment. Avoid making assumptions or jumping to conclusions about their intentions. Jacques. Instead, take the time to gather information, observe their behavior, and reflect on your own feelings before deciding how to respond. Lastly, understanding intent requires you to trust your intuition. Your gut instincts are often a reflection of your subconscious mind, processing information that you might not be fully aware of. If something feels, one of the key reasons for pausing is to avoid being swept away by reactive emotions. When someone contacts you, it's natural for past memories, both positive and negative, to resurface. You might feel a mix of anger, sadness, hope, or even longing. These emotions can cloud your judgment, leading you to respond in ways that don't serve your best interests. By giving yourself time to process these feelings, you create the space needed to separate emotion from logic. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means acknowledging them, sitting with them, and allowing them to settle so that you can approach the situation with a clear mind. Emotional clarity is crucial in determining whether responding is even necessary or beneficial for you. During this period of reflection, it's important to revisit the boundaries you've set for yourself. Boundaries are the framework that protects your emotional and mental well-being, and they should guide your decisions in situations like this. Ask yourself whether responding to this person aligns with the boundaries you've established. If you've worked hard to move on or create distance, consider whether engaging with them might disrupt the progress you've made. Remember that boundaries are not just about protecting yourself from others. but also about holding yourself accountable to the standards you've set for your own growth and healing. Pausing also gives you the opportunity to evaluate the dynamics of the relationship. Reflect on the history you share with this person and whether their presence in your life has been uplifting or draining. Consider the role they've played and whether their contact aligns with the kind of relationships you want to cultivate moving forward. If the connection has been marked by toxicity, manipulation, or inconsistency, it's worth questioning whether re-engaging with them serves your highest good. Third party. On the other hand, if their outreach feels genuine and aligns with the values you prioritize in relationships, it may be worth exploring further. This evaluation process requires honesty with yourself about what you're willing to accept and what you're not. Another critical reason to pause is to give yourself the chance to assess your current emotional state. Are you in a place where you feel strong, confident, and capable of handling this interaction without compromising your well-being? Or are you feeling vulnerable, unsure, or overly emotional? Engaging with someone from a place of emotional vulnerability can leave you open to manipulation or hurt. Waiting until you feel grounded and self-assured ensures that you approach the situation from a position of strength, where you can advocate for your own needs and protect your emotional health. Taking time before responding also allows you to observe their behavior more objectively. When someone reaches out, their actions following that initial contact can reveal a lot about their true intentions. Are they patient, respectful, and willing to give you the space you need? Or are they insistent, demanding, or pressuring you for a response? How they handle the waiting period can provide valuable insight into their character and whether their contact is coming from a place of sincerity or selfishness. Observing their behavior without rushing into a reply gives you the clarity needed to decide how to proceed. Additionally, pausing provides the opportunity to seek guidance or perspective from trusted sources. Talking to a friend, family member, or mentor can help you gain a more balanced understanding of the situation. Sometimes an outside perspective can shed light on aspects you may have overlooked or provide the encouragement needed to stick to your boundaries. However, it's essential to choose confidants who respect your autonomy and won't impose their opinions on you. Their role should be to support you in making a decision that feels right for you, not to push you in a particular direction. In this period of reflection, it is also beneficial to focus on self-care. When someone's outreach stirs up emotions, it can be easy to neglect your own needs in the process of trying to make sense of their actions. Use this time to engage in activities that bring you peace, clarity, and joy. Whether it's journaling, meditating, exercising, or spending time in nature, self-care helps you reconnect with yourself and reinforces your sense of worth. The stronger your connection to yourself, the better equipped you'll be to handle external situations with grace and wisdom. Lastly, the pause gives you the space to consider what you truly want. Often, when someone reaches out, we become preoccupied with their intentions, forgetting to ask ourselves what we hope to achieve from the interaction. Do you want closure, reconciliation, or simply to move on without engaging further? Clarifying your own desires allows you to respond or not respond in a way that aligns with your goals and values. This moment of introspection is about reclaiming your power and ensuring that any decision you make serves your well-being rather than being driven by external pressures or fleeting emotions. When someone reaches out after a period of silence or distance, it's important to take a step back and truly assess their intentions. The act of reaching out might appear as a gesture of care, regret, or interest, but not every intention behind it is always pure or aligned with your best interests. Often, people contact you for reasons that may not serve you. but rather fulfill something they need, be it closure, validation, or even control. Taking the time to critically evaluate their motives is crucial because it allows you to make decisions from a place of power rather than being swayed by emotional responses or assumptions. The first thing to consider when assessing their intentions is the context of their outreach. What prompted them to reach out now? Was there a specific event, such as a breakup, failure, or loneliness, that triggered their action? Many times, people reach out when they're going through a rough patch, not necessarily because they care deeply for you, but because they need someone to ease their own pain. This is especially true if their history with you has been inconsistent or if they've only shown up in your life when they've needed something. Reflect on whether their actions indicate genuine concern for you or if they're seeking to fill a void in their own life without regard for your feelings. Another aspect to evaluate is the tone and content of their message. Are they offering an apology, seeking reconciliation, or merely testing the waters to see if you'll respond? Sometimes people reach out with vague or surface level communication to gauge your availability and willingness to engage. For example, a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" might seem innocent, but it often lacks the depth needed to demonstrate genuine care or accountability. A meaningful attempt to reconnect typically comes with effort, clarity, and sincerity. Pay attention to whether their words align with their past behavior. If their actions in the past have been hurtful, manipulative, or dismissive, a shallow message might indicate that little has changed. Consider the consistency of their actions over time. People who truly value you and have good intentions will show that through a pattern of behavior, not just a one-time message. Reflect on whether this person has been consistent in their respect, care, and honesty toward you. If their outreach feels like a sudden shift from how they've treated you in the past, it's worth questioning whether this change is genuine or merely temporary. Intentions rooted in authenticity and respect are reflected in long-term behavior, not sporadic attempts to re-enter your life when it's convenient for them. It's also important to evaluate whether their actions align with their words. Sometimes people will say what they think you want to hear to regain access to your life, but their behavior doesn't back it up. For instance, they might express regret for past actions or claim they've changed, yet there's little evidence to support those claims. Ask yourself if their outreach is accompanied by accountability or a willingness to address the past. Genuine intentions often include a desire to make amends, take responsibility for mistakes, and demonstrate a commitment to doing better. If these elements are missing, their motives may be more self-serving than sincere. Take into account their timing as well. When someone reaches out, consider whether their contact coincides with a period of vulnerability or success in your own life. For example, they might reach out when they sense you're thriving or moving on, not necessarily because they want to celebrate your growth, but because they feel threatened by it. On the other hand, they may contact you during a time when you're vulnerable, hoping to take advantage of your emotional state. Assessing the timing can provide valuable insights into whether their intentions are aligned with supporting you or with satisfying their own needs. It's also crucial to reflect on the energy and emotions they've brought into your life in the past. Did their presence uplift you, inspire you, and make you feel valued? Or did it leave you feeling drained, confused, or hurt? Patterns of behavior often repeat, and people who have consistently brought negativity or chaos into your life are unlikely to suddenly become a positive force without significant self-work and growth. Consider whether their intentions are truly about building a healthier connection or if they're likely to repeat old patterns that no longer serve you. Be mindful of the power dynamics in the relationship as well. Are they reaching out from a place of mutual respect, or does their contact feel like an attempt to regain control or influence over you? Sometimes people will reach out not because they value you, but because they want to reestablish a sense of dominance or validation. This is particularly common in situations where they've previously held power in the relationship and feel threatened by your independence or growth. Recognizing these dynamics can help you determine whether their intentions are truly about connection or about maintaining their ego. Lastly, trust your intuition. Often, your gut instinct will give you a sense of whether their outreach feels genuine or not. While it's important to analyze their words and actions logically, don't dismiss the inner voice that tells you something feels off. Intuition is a powerful tool for recognizing subtle cues and underlying motives that may not be immediately obvious. If something about their outreach doesn't sit right with you, honor that feeling and take the time to explore it further. Trusting yourself is a critical part of evaluating their intentions and making decisions that protect your emotional well-being. When someone reaches out to you after a period of silence, especially if they have caused pain or disappointment in the past, your emotional response might be strong and immediate. It's natural to feel a mixture of emotions: confusion, hope, frustration, or even longing. These feelings can create an inner conflict, making it difficult to decide how to respond or whether to respond at all. That's why prioritizing your emotional well-being is not only important, but necessary. By doing so, you regain control over the situation and safeguard yourself from unnecessary pain or setbacks. The first step in prioritizing your emotional well-being is to acknowledge and validate your feelings. Whatever emotions arise in response to their outreach, give yourself permission to feel them without judgment. If you feel hurt, betrayed, or confused, it's okay to sit with those emotions and understand where they're coming from. Suppressing or ignoring your feelings as you navigate these feelings creates space for yourself to think clearly. Rushing to respond or engage with them might amplify your emotions and cloud your judgment. Emotional well-being requires a calm, centered approach, and this often means taking a step back. Allow yourself the time and distance to process their outreach without feeling pressure to reply immediately. If their contact has unsettled you, take a few days, or as long as you need, to regain emotional equilibrium. This time allows you to reflect on your needs, boundaries, and priorities before making any decisions about how to proceed. It's also crucial to set clear boundaries with yourself and others during this time. Emotional well-being thrives in environments where boundaries are respected. Ask yourself what you need to feel safe and supported. For example, if their message feels intrusive or brings up unresolved pain, consider whether responding aligns with your emotional health. Boundaries might look like choosing not to engage, limiting your responses, or redirecting the conversation if it steers into uncomfortable territory. By setting boundaries, you communicate to yourself and others that your emotional well-being is non-negotiable and that you value your peace of mind. Another way to prioritize your emotional health is by reframing their outreach in a way that centers your perspective, not theirs. Often, when someone reaches out, it's easy to focus on their actions, motives, or intentions. However, shifting the focus to yourself can be empowering. Instead of asking why they contacted you, ask yourself what you want and need in this moment. Are you seeking closure, clarity, or confirmation that you've moved on? Or are you content with where you are emotionally and uninterested in reopening old wounds? Prioritizing your needs over theirs reinforces the idea that your emotional state matters more than their reasons for contacting you. Surround yourself with supportive people during this time, especially if their contact has stirred up unresolved emotions or confusion. Confiding in a trusted friend, family member, or even a therapist can provide clarity and reassurance. Talking things through with someone who has your best interests at heart helps you process your feelings more effectively. They can offer an outside perspective and remind you of the progress you've made or the reasons you set boundaries in the first place. Their support can be instrumental in reinforcing your emotional well-being, especially if the situation feels overwhelming. Engage in practices that ground and center you. Emotional turbulence can often disrupt your sense of balance, leaving you feeling scattered or unsure of yourself. Activities such as journaling, meditation, or deep breathing can help you reconnect with your inner self. Journaling, for example, allows you to pour out your thoughts and emotions onto paper, creating a space for reflection and clarity. Meditation or mindfulness practices can help you stay present, preventing your mind from wandering into anxious scenarios or overanalyzing their motives. These grounding techniques remind you of your strength and ability to handle the situation with grace. Be mindful of old patterns or dynamics that might resurface. If their contact triggers memories of past hurt or toxic behaviors, it's important to recognize these patterns and avoid falling into them again. Emotional well-being requires breaking free from cycles that no longer serve you. Reflect on what you've learned from your past interactions with this person and how you've grown since then. Use this growth as a foundation for making decisions that protect your peace and mental health. It's also essential to practice self-compassion during this time. Sometimes their contact might stir feelings of doubt, guilt, or even regret. You may question whether you were too harsh, too distant, or too quick to walk away in the past. Remind yourself that you made decisions based on the information and emotional state you had at the time. Be gentle with yourself and resist the urge to dwell on what could have been done differently. Self-compassion reinforces your emotional well-being by allowing you to forgive yourself for past mistakes and focus on the present. Finally, keep your long-term emotional health in mind. When someone reaches out, it's tempting to focus on the short-term gratification of engaging with them, especially if their contact brings a sense of validation or nostalgia. However, consider whether responding aligns with your long-term emotional goals. Will engaging with them bring you closer to the peace, growth, and happiness you've been working toward, or will it disrupt your progress? By keeping your emotional well-being at the forefront of your decisions, you ensure that every choice you make supports the life and mindset you're striving to create. When someone reaches out to you unexpectedly, especially after a period of silence or emotional distance, it's easy to get swept up in the intensity of the moment. However, it's crucial to maintain control over your narrative. You are not obligated to conform to their timeline, emotions, or expectations. Reclaiming control over your narrative means centering yourself in your story, ensuring that you remain the protagonist rather than a supporting character in someone else's drama. To achieve this, you must consciously and actively decide how to interpret their actions, what meaning to assign to them, and how to respond in a way that aligns with your values, growth, and goals. The first aspect of reclaiming control is to step back and take a wide-angle view of the situation. Often, when someone reaches out, it triggers an automatic emotional response, whether it's excitement, anger, or confusion, that can cloud your judgment. By stepping back, you allow yourself the space to evaluate the situation objectively. Ask yourself, what is their outreach really about? Are they reaching out because they've truly changed or because they are acting out of loneliness, guilt, or convenience? Look for patterns in their behavior. If this is not the first time they've reached out after disappearing, it's worth questioning whether their intentions align with your emotional well-being or if they're simply repeating a cycle that benefits them. Reclaiming control also requires you to resist the temptation to seek validation through their contact. It's easy to interpret their message or call as a sign that you're still on their mind, that they regret how things ended, or that they finally see your worth. While these interpretations might feel satisfying in the short term, they place the power of your narrative in their hands instead of waiting for their actions to validate your worth. Remind yourself that your value is not contingent on someone else's acknowledgement. Validation should come from within, through your self-awareness, your growth, and the decisions you make to honor yourself. Part of reclaiming control is deciding how you want the story to progress from this point forward. Just because someone has reached out doesn't mean you have to respond or engage on their terms. Reflect on your boundaries and priorities. Are you in a place where reopening this connection serves your emotional well-being, or would it disrupt the progress you've made? If you choose to respond, do so intentionally. Decide what you want to achieve through the interaction, whether it's closure, clarity, or simply acknowledging their outreach without committing to anything further. By being intentional in your response, you ensure that your actions align with your narrative rather than being dictated by their agenda. It's also important to recognize the power of silence and restraint in reclaiming control. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Silence can communicate strength, resolve, and self-respect in a way that words often cannot. If their outreach feels manipulative or insincere, choosing not to engage can be a way of reclaiming your narrative and refusing to be drawn into dynamics that no longer serve you. Silence allows you to retain your energy, focus, and dignity, reinforcing the boundaries you've set for yourself. Reclaiming control also involves reframing the situation in a way that empowers you. Instead of viewing their outreach as something that disrupts your life or forces you into a reactive state, see it as an opportunity to affirm your growth and strength. This is your chance to demonstrate both to yourself and to them that you are not the same person they once knew. Perhaps you've grown stronger, more self-aware, and more aligned with your values. Use this moment as a reflection of how far you've come and a reminder that you are in control of your life's direction. To maintain control over your narrative, be mindful of how you interpret their words and actions. It's easy to assign meaning to their outreach based on your hopes, fears, or past experiences. For example, you might assume that their contact means they've changed or that they regret their past behavior. However, interpretations like these can lead you to create a story that isn't grounded in reality. Instead, focus on the facts of the situation. What have they actually said or done, and how does that align with their past behavior? Avoid projecting your desires or expectations onto their actions, as this can lead to disappointment or unnecessary emotional entanglement. Another key aspect of reclaiming control is maintaining your sense of independence and autonomy. When someone reaches out, it's natural to feel a pull to engage or to consider their perspective and feelings. However, don't lose sight of your own independence in the process. Remind yourself that your happiness, growth, and peace are not dependent on their actions or presence in your life. You are a complete and capable individual, and your narrative does not require their participation to be meaningful or fulfilling. By maintaining this perspective, you ensure that their outreach does not derail your progress or compromise your sense of self. Reclaiming control also means being prepared for the possibility that their intentions may not align with your expectations. It's important to approach their outreach with clarity and caution rather than assuming the best or worst. If you choose to engage, Set the tone for the interaction. Be clear about your boundaries and expectations, and don't be afraid to assert them if necessary. For example, if their outreach feels like an attempt to reopen old wounds or manipulate your emotions, you have every right to address this or disengage entirely. Remember, you are the one who decides how the interaction unfolds, not them. Finally, reclaiming control over your narrative requires a deep commitment to your own growth and well-being. Reflect on the lessons you've learned from past interactions with this person and how those lessons have shaped you. Use their outreach as an opportunity to reaffirm your values, priorities, and goals. Whether you choose to engage with them or not, let your actions be guided by the person you've become and the future you're building. By doing so, you take ownership of your narrative and ensure that it remains true to who you are and what